Welcome, everyone. So, today we are talking about in the divine wisdom. Is it possible to see, is there any effect of environment in our body, in our mind, in our perception? Is there any effect on that? That's what we're going to discuss today. And in order to do that, this is the TED Ed talk. We'll be looking at this in a little bit more detail to find out two individuals who were born on the same time, same day, but they are now behaving differently. How is it really possible? And then we'll be also having the wisdom based on this.
Here's a conundrum. Identical twins originate from the same DNA. So how can they turn out so different, even in traits that have a significant genetic component? For instance, why might one twin get heart disease at 55 while her sister runs marathons in perfect health? Nature versus nurture has a lot to do with it, but a deeper related answer can be found within something called epigenetics. That's the study of how DNA interacts with the multitude of smaller molecules found within cells, which can activate and deactivate genes. If you think of DNA as a recipe book, those molecules are largely what determine what gets cooked when. They aren't making any conscious choices themselves. Rather, their presence and concentration within cells makes the difference. So how does that work? Genes in DNA are expressed when they're read and transcribed into RNA, which is translated into proteins by structures called ribosomes. And proteins are much of what determines a cell's characteristics and function.
This is what Dr. Bhardwaj was saying in the previous talk also that, hey, is it possible that we have a different response for the same situation? Yeah, it depends upon what gene is getting activated behind the scene. How is it a fight and flight response is there? Are we shutting off any stress which is coming to us because we have faced a similar situation before? And that's what happens. Like most of the time, some genes are getting affected, and that is actually
Epigenetic
happen. The DNA is getting affected.
changes can boost or interfere with the transcription of specific genes. The most common way interference happens is that DNA, or the proteins it's wrapped around, gets labeled with small chemical tags. The set of all of the chemical tags that are attached to the genome of a given cell is called the epigenome. Some of these, like a methyl group, inhibit gene expression by derailing the cellular transcription machinery or causing the DNA to coil more tightly, making it inaccessible. The gene is still there, but it's silent. Boosting transcription is essentially the opposite. Some chemical
Now, this is the same thing as we're saying that is it possible that can we be happy every second of our life? Is there a methodology to do that? Can we remain in the gratitude state of mind from morning till night? Yes, it is do. The gene is already there. We just need to activate that gene for bringing in place so that the stress is released and then we are able to feel happy at any given time.
tags will unwind the DNA, making it easier to transcribe, which ramps up production of the associated protein. Epigenetic changes can survive cell division, which means that they could affect an organism for its entire life. Sometimes that's a good thing. Epigenetic changes are part of normal development. The cells in an embryo start with one master genome. As the cells divide, some genes are activated and others inhibited. Over time, through this epigenetic reprogramming, some cells develop into heart cells and others into liver cells. Each of the approximately 200 cell types in your body has essentially the same genome, but its own distinct epigenome. The epigenome also mediates a lifelong dialogue between genes and the environment. The chemical tags that turn genes on and off can be influenced by factors including diet, chemical exposure, and medication. The resulting epigenetic changes can eventually lead to disease if, for example, they turn off a gene that makes a tumor-suppressing protein. Environmentally induced epigenetic changes are part of the reason why genetically identical twins can grow up to have very different lives. As twins get older, their epigenomes diverge, affecting the way they age and their susceptibility to disease. Even social experiences can cause epigenetic.
Now, this is the stress. Somebody is in stress and they are feeling not happy because some people are laughing at them. And just by this movement, that is struck in the memory for 10 years, 20 years. What can we do? Take out of that epigenome is a methodology which is really helping everyone. That can happen in an instance. Once we know the knowledge that everything is a data, we start feeling happy. We start pretend to feel happy. And then that's what.
Genetic changes. In one famous experiment, when mother rats weren't attentive enough to their pups, genes in the babies that help them manage stress were methylated and turned off. And it might not stop with that generation. Most epigenetic marks are erased when egg and sperm cells are formed. But now, researchers think that some of those imprints survive, passing those epigenetic traits on to the next generation. Your mother's or your father's experiences as a child or choices as adults could actually shape your.
Now, this is another thing, like some trauma incident take place. And now this is where they get struck in the body. In the body, the information is struck of what happened 2 generation ago. That's what they are saying. And this is being passed through from generation in generation. And because that is being passed through, if somebody is smoking, that is passed through generation to generation. They have an inclination to smoke. Some people are depressed, they probably have inclination of the same thing. And that is possible to happen. That means the chances of that person doing that is more. But what can we do? The environment, can we change the environment? Yeah, absolutely. The environment can be changed and we start feeling happy right away.
Your own epigenome. But even though epigenetic changes are sticky, they're not necessarily permanent. A balanced lifestyle that includes a healthy diet, exercise, and avoiding exposure to contaminants may, in the long run, create a healthy epigenome. It's an exciting time to be studying this. Scientists are just beginning to understand how epigenetics could explain mechanisms of human development and aging, as well as the origins of cancer, heart disease, mental illness, addiction, and many other conditions. Meanwhile, new genome editing techniques are making it much easier to identify which epigenetic changes really matter for health and disease. Once we understand how our epigenome influences us, we might be able to influence it too.
So thank you for the epigenome. So Dr. Bhardwaj, please go ahead.
Well, here Rohit had shown you something wonderful to understand, and he's talking about genes and the environment. I would like to give you a small little example, and then you can think about it, and you can change those environments to develop something what you really want to be happy. And in this, I would like to give you an example of a small little bird. We call it as bagula in India, and it stands in the rice fields. Now, the rice field where they are growing this rice, the water depth is hardly few inches. So the legs of this bird is smaller, and the beak also is smaller. Darwin also explained this. But then the situation changes if there is a deeper water, and then you need to increase these legs much longer. So this is like cranes, which developed out of that due to that environment which was there. It was a deeper water available, and then a longer beak was needed. So this environment really changed the genes, and a longer neck and a longer beak along with longer legs developed. So this is how the environment can change and can help you, and you can decide about that, because you have got that ability to take a decision whether to give your attention to that environment or to give attention to a different environment which can really help you to grow better. So this is how this example really can give you an idea that how things change, and this is what is epigenics, that you can understand that how to change your genes to think better and to become better. This is what is a wisdom bite. If you can take it up with you, that you can decide that, because you have got state of art planning ability and its execution ability. That's the divine ability in you. And now, in this changing world, you can update your programs, whatever you are doing, because you have to update all that information. It was there in the previous lives, or in the past 10 years ago you had some kind of a depression, and that is what is affecting your genes. So you can change them, my dear. This is what is the key area which Rohit is trying to explain to you, and we are adding up some divine wisdom to that, small little bites which will give you a direction to think accordingly. Thank you very much. Over to Rohit.
Thank you, Bhardwaji, for today's wisdom and a wonderful day and happy New Year. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you.